My name is Martin Bacall from OpenLegacy. I'll be your moderator of the panel discussion between Yoav Nav, Vice President of Product at GigaSpaces, and Zev Avidan, Chief Product Officer at OpenLegacy. Yoav drives product management, technology, vision, and go-to-market activities for GigaSpaces. Yoav brings with him more than 12 years of industry knowledge in product management and software engineering experience in cloud, storage, data management, big data, and analytics. Zev Avidan drives product management OpenLegacy. He has been involved with the concept microservice since the early days of enterprise application integration and so on. Over the past 20 years, he has seen firsthand the pitfalls and challenges with integration and legacy systems. This session will be open discussion where our panel members will be answering questions that have been asked by customers and prospects. So please feel free to enter your question anytime by using the questions option. We'll answer them during the session. So let's get started. Yoav, why does this integration make sense for users and what are the benefits?
Cool. So first of all, hey guys, hey Martin and Zev, happy to be here. So I'd say in general, many enterprises are looking at ways how to modernize their legacy or core infrastructure, whether it's mainframe, different like relational database or data warehouse, and as part of the transition moving to the cloud or moving towards more microservice, more modernized architecture. And as a part of it, like the joint offering by GigaSpaces and OpenLegacy kind of allows to do the migration in a very easy and open manner, in a gradual manner, to kind of tap into your existing infrastructure without any rewriting or replace, moving data to kind of more modernized system and start building your new workloads or new services based on the existing like logic and business logic that is running on your existing kind of infrastructure.
Zev, anything to update there?
Yeah, no, I mean, it made sense when we first kind of engaged GigaSpaces and OpenLegacy. It really made sense because we were talking with a lot of customers and they were talking about ways to incorporate their legacy systems into modern systems, maybe offloading some work, but basically having this one single view of all their data and processes. And we were talking from the standpoint of how do you bring the legacy side to it, but still you needed that robust, highly available, high frequency in-memory system to work versus. So when we kind of engage with GigaSpaces, it really made sense because that's kind of a complete vision. It's not just about how do I have a platform to deal with some of the things. It's about how do I have a platform to deal with kind of the entire strategy, incorporate all of my different assets from across the organization, be it legacy, be it new development, and basically have one singular point of view or one single place to work. So this is why it made a lot of sense. This is why we kind of started the discussions, and this is why we announced our relationship. And I think that can provide great value to our customers in terms of kind of having a cohesive strategy around all of their assets, digital, modern, legacy, and so forth.
Thank you very much. Yoav, how does the integration actually work, though?
Cool. So great question. So I think first of all, at the end of the day, the enterprise data is spread across different sources, whether it's in different applications, whether it's mainframe or data warehouse and others, and you want to be able to tap into the different sources where your customers' data is spread across. So I think the integration itself is kind of split across. We look at it the three-way process. First of all, is the ability to provide a kind of external endpoints, APIs to your existing application and existing workloads that are still running on the legacy systems like a mainframe, whether it's a COBOL code, whether it's using an API that triggers a CICS online transaction and so on. Then second step is also capturing data. If you have any data that is stored on DB2 or whether it's on Oracle and others, we can capture data and integrate data in real time to GigaSpaces. And then you're able to use GigaSpaces and the OpenLegacy solution on one hand as a caching layer on top of your existing infrastructure, as well as an operational data store and analytical data store for your new digital services that you're trying to build, whether it's like dynamic pricing or next best offer or real-time fraud. Doesn't matter what's the application, but it's mainly a combination of sources that are spread across or data that is spread across different sources that is provides a unified view in a kind of a more modern platform and a unified way.
And I think to add to that, I mean, one of the challenges is, customers would ask when talking about their data, do I need fresh data? Can I do with stale data? What is it exactly that I need? And the answer, of course, should be both. You need both for different, reasons. And this really kind of allows you to do both, because it allows you to both have fresh data directly, per inquiry or per update, going back to a legacy system, but also persist that data in the caching layer, and use it in a very robust way, high frequency kind of a way. So it really kind of allows you on the same platform, do the thing that you would do on a data lake, and also the thing that you would do with a direct API, but do them on the same type of platform or the same exact platform. And really that's very powerful, because now you don't have to deal with two technology stacks. You don't need to have your developers dealing with different ways of doing things. It's a unified solution that provides you basically all the access to your data, wherever it comes from, whatever way you want to access it, what's the level of freshness it needs to be. So that's why it's a very powerful solution.
Yeah, and by the way, that's a great point. If we want to mix, let's say I have the real-time aspect, what the user is doing right now in my mobile application, what's the online transaction, and I want to mix it in real time with his historical shopping characteristics, what he usually buys during weekends or during a holiday, during Christmas. Does he like to buy food or widgets or sports or whatever? So I can combine the real-time aspect with the historical characteristics coming from different sources, but still make the decision or provide the promotion or the offering in real time, kind of sub 2 seconds when the user is still online in my application.
Thank you very much, both of you. Zev, why is now the right time for approach legacy integrations?
So I think, a lot of organizations are on their digital journey. They've started the digital journey some years ago, and they're well on their way. And that digital journey, started with the lowest hanging fruits, usually for a lot of organizations, and kind of everything that was easy, probably they've already done it, but easy doesn't really always equate to valuable. So now when we're getting to the core data, to the core processes, that's where things get a little bit stickier. And that's where, you already have some understanding of where you want to go digitally, but now you really need to incorporate core data, core processes, things that lives in, mainframes and S400s and all kinds of legacy systems. And you want to be able to incorporate them into your digital, transformation. And one of the things that I think people started realizing in the last couple of years maybe is that hybrid IT is probably not just a transitional thing, it's probably an end state. So having solutions that would provide you kind of stable solutions for an end state, which is hybrid IT, meaning you will still have your mainframe probably in the next 5 to 10 years. Nobody knows what happens after that. Probably you will still have your mainframe. You would still need to develop things in an agile way on a modern platform and all of those things. And combining those things in terms of technology, people, processes, is going to be very, very important. So this is, I think, why we're seeing a lot more urgency with organizations trying to do more with their digital transformation. Regulations come into play. In Europe, also the California regulations. I mean, those things affect decisions, mostly on the financial services, but other industries as well. Of course, customers' preferences are extremely important, especially right now. I mean, with the COVID-19 crisis, I mean, a lot of people behavior changed towards the digital, so people expectations are changing. So for all of those reasons, I think now there's a unique sense of urgency in terms of not just saying you're going digital, but actually going digital across the board, from core all the way to your digital channels.
Yeah, if I may add, I would say also a cost reduction, like it's also a great driver, especially with the COVID-19. People or organization are looking at ways to either reduce their infrastructure costs or improve their operational efficiency. And we do see different use cases where customer of ours are able to reduce millions of dollars a year by moving MIBs or MIBs consumption and workload from their mainframes to GigaSpaces and then to the cloud, as well as places where you want to improve your operational efficiency by, let's say, using NLP algorithm on your CRM data and then being able to reduce the resolution time on your call center. So different ways to leverage your legacy data with more modern kind of application.
Thank you very much. Next question, we'll start with Yoav. How is the integration process affected by general shifts in cloud computing?
Yeah, so I would say in general, we do see even traditional like industries like telcos or banks or large retailers are moving to the cloud nowadays. We have airline customers that have moved from on-premise to Azure. We have banks customers that move to AWS. So we do see a large shift in moving workloads and building new services on the cloud. And as part of it, I would say is also the ability to handle all the elasticity. Okay, when you have a Black Friday, you have 20 times more users with, and you need to handle that scope. When you have Brexit or COVID-19, suddenly you have a peak in your number of trades. So you need to be able to easily scale up and scale down. You can do it with the public cloud providers. You can also have customers that have built a private cloud based on OpenShift. So all the kind of OpenShift and Kubernetes technologies can come into the place. But I would say the cloud enables you the elasticity and to handle the load while maintaining the same kind of customer service on the same level.
Yeah, I would say that definitely you're seeing organizations and industries that were very much apprehensive about moving to the cloud, embracing the cloud more and more. Of course, it will be a mix and match. It will be hybrid for the foreseeable future, but definitely we're seeing a much greater adoption of cloud, but be it private or public, and more specifically, definitely a shift towards cloud technologies. That's definitely a big shift. Containerizations, microservices. That's everybody's doing that basically at this point.
Okay, now Zev, what industries are adopting your technology fastest?
So definitely, I would say that the industry that's fastest moving or the most kind of with the most sense of urgency is the financial services industry, banking in particular, and retail banking. I would say, even if I need to make it more specific, but as a general rule, financial services is a big play. I think the insurance industry is getting there. It's not as moving as fast as the banks, but it's getting there. I think there are a lot of pressures in terms of the insurance ecosystem that drives them more towards those types of solutions. I think retail has done a lot of work in the past, but still there's work to be done. Manufacturing, there's a lot of work to be done. But I would say that definitely the most fast-moving industry is financial services.
Yeah, I agree. I think in terms of on-premise to the cloud and modernizing the legacy infrastructure, it's something very strategic to banks, also telcos and insurance companies that we see in the market. And today, when we look at the fintech and the digital banks, they are moving very fast because of their technology stack. They're not limited to their they don't have the legacy and all the backbone that the large banks have, and that allows them to be much more competitive in terms of commissions and fees. In terms of automation, you can get a loan approved in 2 minutes, as well as all their like efficiency of how they can scale up and scale down, handling different loads. So I think that's a place where companies understand that they're not in the financial space, but they're like software companies that need to deliver financial services, and that's kind of a shift that we see as part of moving to the cloud and cloud technologies. So a cultural change.
Okay, follow-on question for that. Zev, you mentioned a hybrid approach. By using this approach, how does a legacy system phased out, or is it?
So I mean, yeah, that's a great caveat, because they might be phased out, they might not be phased out. One thing that you want to be careful about, just looking at experience from the past, if you're thinking about a single event migration, as they call them, or one and done, that's usually a pretty dangerous strategy. So the way to think about legacy, a modern legacy migration, I would say, if that's not a weird term to use, is really about providing you the flexibility to move according to your priorities. So you need the technology and you need the processes and you need the way of thinking that basically is not all or nothing. It's not, well, I have to get rid of my mainframe by, in 5 years, I will have nothing on my mainframe. That might be the good strategy to go, but it's more important to have, this is the way I can offload things off of my mainframe or whatever legacy system that is. This is my process. These are the priorities that I start with. And I start doing it gradually. We call it phased migration. And maybe priorities will change. Definitely priorities will change. 18 months, 24 months into the project, probably things will be a little bit different. And so you might want to change your priorities. Maybe other things might be more important to migrate off. Maybe you will hit what we call peak migration. Peak migration is basically where you migrated enough off of your legacy system that the rest, that just doesn't worth the investment. I mean, you might as well just keep it there because it doesn't cost you that much. So really, you need to think about it in a way that's more flexible. And really, it's not about, and that's true for, I think, all kinds of IT and software development throughout. It's not so much about, what is it that I'm going to be able to achieve in the next year. It's more, what kind of capabilities can I develop in terms of a muscle that come, when next year comes and I will get a requirement, it will take me the shortest amount of time to fulfill that requirement. It's a different thinking. It's not capacity, it's flow. It's about, let's say in a year from now, I have a challenge with my mainframe and I need to, migrate away. How long will it take me to migrate a particular type of functionality? Will it take me, a year worth of project? Will it take me a week? That's the kind of thinking that I think is most valuable in today's market condition. We are constantly changing technology-wise, market condition-wise. There's a lot of changes, and that's why your thinking needs to be as flexible as the conditions are.
You have anything to add to that one?
Yeah, so I think I do agree with Zev that the process is done should be done gradually. We do have like a large railway company and also a large airline that have done the transition from their legacy system on-premise to the cloud, and it was done across 2-3 years. They still have workloads on-premise, but they started with it was a two-phase approach, starting with moving to Kubernetes on-premise, and then the shift to the cloud was relatively easier because you decouple kind of the application from the infrastructure itself. And then they're starting building new workloads directly in the cloud and only moving specific workloads like maybe booking system or predictive maintenance stuff that they had issues with or had to accelerate in terms of processing time, and existing workload that was less sensitive or more critical they didn't want to touch because it was like a COBOL code written 40 years ago. So they kept it running on premise and it'll probably be there for the next 5 years. So I think it's doing a hybrid mode and doing it gradually. It's the best approach. And usually when you try to rip and replace and start to bring like technology that like automatically generate Java code from your COBOL code, you end up with a lot of bugs and tuning, and it kind of tend to fail.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. The next question is, Yoav, do you see regulations key driver for joint GigaSpaces open legacy solution?
Yeah, so again, I think today, if like 50% or even more, at least in the financial space of the investment, is around regulation and less about modernization. So it is a key driver. We see like PSD2 for payment processing, AML, KYC, and open banking as a key driver in the financial space. We also see for example, WLTP in the automotive space. We just published a new case study with the PSA group, the Peugeot Citroën Automotive Group in France, how they, due to new regulation about CO2 emission, they had to move workloads around their pricing from the mainframe to GigaSpaces, offloading like 95% of that calculation to GigaSpaces. So I think the new regulation kind of mandate a new approach because it creates a lot of strain and loads on the legacy system, and you need to find a way to quickly, and based on usually the regulation creates like a timeline and a budget, and you need to kind of do it quickly. So usually that's kind of the best approach for new type of initiatives.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I mean, regulation is one of those things that forces you to touch those, components in your architecture that you don't necessarily want to touch, and it has a very definite, a finite timeline there. And you really can't ignore it. I mean, just taking one of our recent use cases, California regulation, right to be forgotten. It's not the right to be forgotten from everywhere except your mainframe vSAM files, for example. It's the right to be forgotten. So you just cannot ignore your legacy components. And when you're doing, PSD2, of course, that by definition would touch your core banking systems. So that's in the financial services. But all types of regulations, they really don't care about what your IT flexibility looks like. You really can't time it in any different way. You have to do it, and so that's why it's so important to have the flexibility to do that without saying, you can't tell the regulator, well, I have a 7-year legacy migration project. Once I get off my mainframe, then I'll be able to do that. That's just won't fly. So definitely that's a key driver for both what you are trying to do now, but also for thinking about how you should approach that process in the future.
Thank you very much. Zev, this one, I think we might have covered partially in the hybrid one, but for large enterprises, what's the best migration path from on-prem to the cloud?
So what we usually advocate is the 1-2 punch. The 1-2 punch is basically, if you think about those large migration projects, they are, there's a limit to how much you can shorten them. I did not see a successful migration project from a large, core legacy system in less than 2 years. And 2 years is really, really fast. I mean, that's not anywhere near the norm. Usually it's around 4 to 7 years in terms of a process. When it succeeds, which is also a problem, a lot of them fail, get stuck in the middle. So the best approach, as we said, I mean, it's a phased approach. It's a 1-2 punch. And the reason why you have the 1-2 punch, and the 1 punch is basically, how do I provide the most immediate value out of my legacy system without adding technical debt? So APIing it, creating basically an abstraction layer on top of it, making it usable and useful in my digital strategy. And only then, behind the scenes, once the pressure is alleviated a little bit, only then do I modernize it, bits by pieces. And there's always this kind of debate around, well, but if I do that, then alleviate the pressure out of, modernizing immediately, wouldn't that hurt my modernization project because it will be less urgent? And I would say absolutely not. And the reason for that is because you don't necessarily know where you're going on a span of 4 years, and being able to combine or to seamlessly integrate, for lack of a better word, your legacy strategy into the digital strategy, and getting those immediate successes and immediate kind of wins really kind of pulls the entire organization in the same direction. And so the more you use your legacy system in this way, the more valuable that approach seems to the business owners, to the decision makers, and the more important it is then to go about and really modernizing behind the scenes. So if you treat your legacy system as a different silo, as something that nobody should touch, and we just have to hack away and work on it, and 5 years from now we'll come up with something great, that's not going to fly. I mean, that's not, you can't prioritize your organization to not innovate, but only do that kind of a conversion. If you are continuously engaging, if you're from the legacy side, continuously engaging with the rest of the business, serving their needs, while doing that migration, it makes that migration much more a part of the entire business thinking, and that makes it more aligned. And also, you will know better what to do. So it's a bit of a shifting change in what we used to do 10 years ago, for example, where there were a lot of these kind of lift and shifts and single event migrations. A lot of them did not succeed. I would say today it's more about aligning with the business need, and the business need today is all about the one killer app that everybody needs to have, and that's speed, velocity in terms of being able to deploy and react to the market.
Yeah, and by the way, there's when people talk about moving to the cloud, there's also everyone are talking about Kubernetes in terms of orchestration, but there's always one aspect which is less handled, is how you manage the data transfer itself. And for example, if you're talking about the bank, and it's not just a bank, but there's data in terms of privacy regulation. There's data like call center recording that shouldn't, based on the regulation, shouldn't find himself in the cloud. There's data that should be anonymized or encrypted, like credit card numbers or phone numbers or social ID numbers. And as part of the transition, the solution itself, we provide out of the box kind of labels. You can label data as different levels of privacy, and some of the data will be filtered and stay on premise. Some of the data will be moved to the cloud and anonymized or encrypted based on the need, and some of that will be moved as clear text. So that kind of provide you also a layer how to manage the data while moving it to the cloud itself for analytics or for the more modern applications. So that's like an important aspect also you need to handle as part of the migration itself.
Thank you very much. And Yoav, what's typical time frame to offload a service from the mainframe to GigaSpaces and OpenLegacy solution?
So a POC, we can show it in a small POC on 1 or 2 servers, it could be days, but in reality, to move to production, based on our experience, a single service takes around 12 weeks. And as you move more and more services, the time kind of improves. But I think 12 weeks, it's time to move from doing all the testing, performance benchmarking, correctness, moving to and going live, and you get the value pretty fast, as opposed to project that you don't, you start to see real value after a year or two. And as part of as a reference, you can see in the GigaSpace website the PSA case study that it took them 12 weeks from the day we signed the contract that it moved kind of up and running, and their entire pricing engine moved from the mainframe to GigaSpace and went live in production.
Thank you. And Zev, want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, there's several aspects to that, right? So there's the actual moving processes, which is required a bit of a rewrite. There's also those processes you might not want to move everything at the same time. So for example, there's a lot of coupling that happens on the legacy side. And so you want to move, a piece of functionality, but then connect it to your legacy system to keep that to mitigate that coupling. So creating those APIs and entry points and all of those kind of things, that would be, eventually a matter of hours or a day, something like that, to create an API, which is pretty unique. I mean, usually it will take you a long time to integrate with a legacy system. We've seen 6 months just to create the digital service talking with the legacy system. And of course, it's a modified digital service, so it contains business logic, but time frames like 6 months and stuff like that. So this, the joint offering here is 2 platforms that provides rapid way of doing that and really expediting the process, so that within weeks, and on the OpenLegacy side, creating APIs is a matter of days, and if you want to offload, so that's some rewrite, so that would be a couple of weeks. But that's a dramatically different solution in terms of time frames than what it would take you using traditional tools or using or doing it yourself. I would say to one of Yoav's point, which is extremely important, and that is the more you do it, first of all, the better you get at it, but the more you do it, or the more you will need to do, the more you will want to invest in what we call the API factory or the software factory for creating new functionalities. But basically this concept of automating, streamlining the entire process. So introducing a lot of automation in terms of how you generate those services, in terms of how you generate the connections, in terms of how you introduce cross-cutting concerns like security, analytics, all of those type of things. The more you automate them, the better results you're getting at the end of the day. So if you already know that, maybe you're starting with a smaller project, but you're targeting a large quantity of those services, then definitely automation is something you want to invest in. And we always say, always skew towards the strategic. So that means that every time you're doing something, it's worthwhile to check and see whether you can automate it for the future and the next times you will want to do that.
Well, thank you very much to both of you, Zev and Yoav, for a great panel discussion. This session will be recorded and posted on Break Talk later today. So please feel free to rewatch it or to tell your coworkers to watch it as well. You also can find out more on both of our websites, OpenLegacy.com and GigaSpaces.com. This webcast also is part of a webcast series on Bright Talk in OpenLegacy's channel. So feel free to watch other recordings or watch for new webcasts. And I appreciate both of your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys. Take care.
Yep, thank you.